I'm putting together another video here real quick. Basically what I want to do is outline the problem I've had with Isabella County. It starts with Shelley Sweet and Deputy Clinton Steiner. What they did on September 27th, 2010 was they worked together, they conspired together to, Steiner was doing Sweet a favor called a solid to police. This solid involved helping her with an eviction without actually having to go through the court. Which means it was unlawful, completely unlawful, the eviction. And what happens when you do an eviction without court process is you completely circumvent due process. And that's what happened. The Isabella County Sheriff's Department has deputies that are trained in evictions. Again, this was not an eviction. The court never did order an eviction, but Steiner carried out the equivalent of an eviction as an armed agent for Shelley Sweet, a co-worker. This is a violation of Title 18 Sections 241 and 242. I'm going to post them right here in the video. As you can see here, you can read them right for yourself. They're off the FBI website. What we're looking at right here is Title 18 United States Code Section 241, Conspiracy Against Rights. The statute makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person of any state, territory, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, or because of his or her having executed the same. It further makes it unlawful for two or more persons to go in disguise on the highway or on the premise of another. And this is real important right here. Shelley Sweet and Clinton Steiner came to my house when I called 911. I called 911 to report a burglary. Shelley Sweet showed up, followed by Clinton Steiner. Sweet worked for the Sheriff's Department, but she didn't come in uniform. She came in civilian clothes. And the two pretended that they didn't know each other. Okay, that was the disguise. The disguise was for Steiner to do what he needed to do to get us to go away for the favor for Shelley Sweet. I don't understand if Steiner realized how much of our property had been stolen at that point, or if he was in fact actually involved himself on the weekend of September 25th and 26th, prior to Monday, September 27th. He could have actually, you know, gotten a new leather couch, or an entertainment center, or a king-size bed, or any number of items that were stolen from our home. This paragraph in Title 18 Section 241, it further makes it unlawful for two or more persons to go in disguise on the highway or on the premise of another. Okay, this was my premise, this was my wife's premise, this was our children's home. And that's what it's talking about here. The disguise, going in disguise. Shelley Sweet was an Isabella County Sheriff's Department employee purporting to be a civilian. And the disguise was Steiner and Sweet being co-workers, but they came disguised as though they didn't know each other. Okay, that was the extent of the disguise, and it was with that disguise they intended to do what's talked about in the first paragraph. Makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person of any state, territory, district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, or because of his or her having exercised the same. Now, Steinert was at our property 3 times that day. After the first time, he told my wife and I that we'd be leaving by arrest or peacefully, but that one way or the other we'd be leaving. We opted to leave without getting arrested. We both had things to do, and the first thing I had to do was go to the sheriff's department. Steinert came back because my trip to the sheriff's department and my discussion with Tellis and his call to the prosecuting attorney, Larry Burdick, resulted in Burdick telling Tellis that if we could prove we'd not been evicted, we should be able to get our home back. Well, returning to the property, I stopped short. I didn't pull up on the property. Steinert had already put Sweet and Wheeler in possession of our property, and since that was done by the police, I felt that it created a very dangerous situation in that they could now defend it as I probably should have done the first time. But instead, I opted to wait for Steinert. Steinert showed up after me, and while I was parked there at the property, Shelley Sweet and Robert Wheeler were coming out of my house with content from in the house. And when they saw me, they took it back in the house. Robert Wheeler was egging me to come onto the property like he felt justified in a confrontation, whereas him and Sweet had been given possession of the home earlier by Steinert. I maintained my position. I observed Shelley Sweet on the phone, and she called. I found out later she was on the phone with 911 dispatch reporting me as a stalker. So Steinert arrived shortly thereafter, and that was quite an ordeal. Ultimately, Steinert threatened me with arrest again and told me to get off the property. I told him that I'd seen both Sweet and Wheeler coming out of our home with content from the home, and it didn't seem to matter to him. And ultimately, Sweet and Wheeler said they had a court-ordered eviction from a judge, from a court signed by a judge, but it was at Robert Wheeler's house and they needed to go get it. The second visit to the property, Steinert's second visit to the property. Steinert then allowed Wheeler to leave the property with a truckload of stolen property without ever having looked at it, without wanting to look at it, without acknowledging that I had told him the truck contained stolen property. He allowed Wheeler to leave to go get this court order that didn't exist. While Wheeler was gone, Sweet admitted to Deputy Steinert that they didn't have a court order signed by a judge. But see, the transaction had already happened here. Wheeler was allowed to leave with a truckload of stolen property from my house without having investigated that. Steinert facilitated the theft of our property during this second visit, personally, himself, by not listening to what I had to say and by allowing them to leave. When Sweet told Steinert that they didn't have a court order, Steinert said, well, let's just wait and see what he comes back with, like he could go get one or something, like he might be able to shit authorization for what they'd been doing all day. And about 40 minutes later, Wheeler came back driving a different vehicle without any stolen property in it, and no court order signed or unsigned. He didn't have any paperwork at all. He just came back in a different car. Based on that, Steinert returned possession of the home back to my wife and I, and Steinert had kicked me off the property already, and at this point I felt it was safe to come back on the property, and I cautiously and politely approached Steinert and I asked him to come into the property, and he refused. Asked again for a police report and he refused. And before Steinert's taillights were out of sight, we made entry to the garage, recognizing that the majority of our stuff was gone, and called 911 again to report a burglary. and entering the home, we discovered more of the same. Contents of our home were stolen. Now at this point, the sheriff's department, the deputy, Steiner, had been there twice, and neither one of his visits were productive for justice. He's a blithering idiot. Okay, he was more interested in doing a favor for a coworker than doing anything having anything to do with law or justice. In fact, you know, I would have been miles ahead to not even have called the police at all that day. We should have broke the doors down and noticed at that time that the contents of our home were stolen and reported it as a breaking and entering burglary. You know, it doesn't matter who stole our shit. It doesn't make it civil because the landlord stole our shit. That's just ludicrous. Okay, landlords aren't exempt from criminal prosecution if they steal from their tenants. That's retarded. And Steiner's retarded. And Sheriff Leo's retarded for not helping us out. So, anyways, that was the first and second visit from Steiner. He refused to give us a police report for either visit. And after Steiner left, after his second visit, I called 911 again to report the burglary, and Steiner ultimately came back and arrested me for misuse of 911. Well, it wasn't an arrest, okay? The theft of our property, Steiner's participation in the theft of our property, the Title 18 Criminal Code, Section 241, Conspiracy Against Rights, that crime's in progress. So if you're a cop and you're in progress crime, you can't say, well, I'm committing this crime right now, so I'm going to take a break from that and then actually serve as a functional cop and make a lawful arrest. It doesn't work that way. You know, if you're engaged in a crime, you don't arrest somebody, you kidnap them, okay, under the pretense of being a cop. And that's exactly what happened. And I thought I was going to get killed. I thought Steiner was going to run me down the end of some 2-track and put a bullet in my head. And one of the reasons I'm making this video is because Title 18, Section 241, punishment varies from a fine or imprisonment of up to 10 years or both. And if death results, or if such acts include kidnapping, okay, again, we're at the kidnapping part. I was kidnapped. I wasn't arrested. There was nothing lawful about Steiner putting me in cuffs and taking me away from my family after having been locked out of our house all day, and after discovering that a house full of contents were now gone. And then I get arrested. That's kidnapping, okay? Steiner participated in the theft of the property in our home. He refused to do what a cop should do, and then he arrested me, kidnapped me. Partially probably because I filled out a complaint at the sheriff's department about his participation in our armed lockout, assisted by the sheriff's department, and then arrested me. The arrest video of me in the car and the arrest video of Steiner showing up with another deputy is already on YouTube, and that's probably good to watch. The important thing here is I'm not angry, okay, but I am hell-bent on bringing justice to my family. And I think to a large degree the sheriff's department thinks that I'm angry, thinks that that I could exact some sort of revenge against them, and using deadly force or whatever. You know, that's just not who I am, and that's why I wanted to cut this video, because, you know, kidnapping during the commission of a federal crime amplifies the potential sentence to that of death. Okay, Steiner could be sentenced to death for kidnapping me during the commission of a federal crime. Now, it's not just Steinert anymore, okay? Shelley Sweet invited members of the Sheriff's Department to come into our home. These people are co-conspirators. Now, there's the theft of our property, there's my kidnapping, and there's Sheriff Leo Metashevsky, who was told all of this by me. I told Sheriff Leo, and I'll put up the email that volley that I had with Sheriff Leo, where he asked me what did the Sheriff's Department seize, and I told him the contents of my home, and he refused to do anything. He refused to even speak with me at a point after that, and he became a co-conspirator at that point because I informed him of the crimes, and I informed him that members from his sheriff's department were the criminals, and he opted to preserve the thin blue line as opposed to doing what a constitutional sheriff should do. And I'm scared to death. You know, the punishment for violation of Federal Criminal Code, Title 18, Section 241, where a kidnapping occurs, could be a life sentence, any term of years, or for life, or maybe sentenced to death. I was kidnapped during the commission of this federal crime, and Sheriff Leo became a co-conspirator. He became an accessory after the fact. He aided and abetted Steinert, because this happened 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago already. And Sheriff Leo and Larry Burdick's actions have only been to protect and to preserve Isabella County and the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. That's aiding and abetting. And that's very unfortunate for them. But it must be known right now in this video that I don't have a hostile bone in my body. And that's why it's important this video is out. I don't trust these guys for obvious reasons. The Sheriff's Department looted my home. They stole over $55,000 worth of property. Michigan compiled law 600.2918 has provision for treble damages. Damages for forcible entry and detainer. Damages for unlawful interference with possessory interest. Michigan compiled law 600.2918 specifies damages for forcible entry, damages for unlawful interference with possessory interest. Both Steinert and Sweet intentionally interfered with our possessory interest. And that's what they did. That's what a lockout is. Section 2918. Any person who is ejected or put out of lands or tenements in a forcible and unlawful manner, or being out is afterward held out and kept out by force, is entitled to recover 3 times the amount of his actual damages, or $200, whichever is greater. Okay, the property, without giving a value to things that were priceless, is over $55,000 replacement cost value. Okay, $55,000 times 3, and that places no value on keepsake items created, put together by relatives that are deceased. How do you put a price on Christmas ornaments that were handcrafted by a dead brother-in-law? How do you do that? But it's not the value of the damages or value of the items that can't be replaced, that are irreplaceable. We're not even getting any recognition for everything else. $55,000 worth of home furnishings, couches, love seats, end tables, oak file cabinets, oak entertainment centers, kitchen tables, massive seats 12, dishes, You know, it's a huge list. But we don't have a receipt. You know, you don't get a receipt when you've been burglarized. Okay, the burglars don't give you an inventory. You know what I'm saying? The burglars here were the Isabella County Sheriff's Department. Shelley Sweet, a Sheriff's Department employee, Clinton Steiner, a co-worker, a deputy, and their bosses, Under Sheriff Tellis, Sheriff Leo Maniszewski. These people should have responded. These people should have acted, but instead they became co-conspirator. Aiding and abetting. Misprision of felony. Obstruction of justice. Okay, why am I afraid of these fuckers right now? Because there's some heavy penalties for their crimes. Anyways, just to show the mindset of the Sheriff's Department and the county and the local community, including the Michigan State Police, I applied for a CCW and was denied. Two things. Number one, I spent 6 years on submarines tending nuclear missiles. Okay, that was my job. I was a missile technician. I worked on intercontinental ballistic missiles. Okay, I had a very high security clearance, and I had a background investigation by the FBI. They fully vetted me before I went in the military. After the military, and even during the military, I had a concealed carry permit in Washington State, and I let it expire naturally. I've never had any weapons charges or violations. There was no reason for Isabella County to deny me my concealed carry permit, but they did anyway. And on top of that, they declared me confrontational and said that I was a risk to myself and to others. They clinically diagnosed me as being homicidal and suicidal, which is total bullshit. But what they did by doing that, number one, they gave me a denial. If I move to North Carolina tomorrow and apply for my CCW, I'm going to have to say, yeah, this screwed up county in the central Michigan denied my concealed carry permit. But the biggest thing Isabella County did was they put a bullseye on my back. Okay, they've labeled me a potential threat to their corruption, and that part is accurate. I am a threat to the corruption that exists in this county, but I'm not a threat to anybody personally. But where do these corrupt people draw the line? Where do they stop? Okay? Are they going to stop ever? Or are they going to see me open carrying one day and just shoot me because I'm a threat to myself and to others? This is what I'm getting at. The police will always try and justify their actions, and in my case, Ted Visner shot dead outside of Myers, apparently had a gun. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I was perfectly lawfully open carrying my gun. And the dickhead Larry, the Mount Pleasant police post commander, said I was confrontational. You could tell I was confrontational by the way I was sitting. And that's a YouTube video already. My gun board with Larry and Risa Scully. Okay, I've posted public notice on my website. You know, it's common knowledge. It's been posted for a very long time. Risa Scully admitted during my gun board that she'd frequented my site and knew my allegations. But as the prosecuting attorney in Isabella County, instead of just, you know, laughing off my allegations of corruption, she is responsible for doing something about it, which doesn't include just reveling in it, you know, making herself another co-conspirator. Allegations of corruption have been laid down. My county is corrupt. The prosecutor's corrupt, the sheriff's corrupt, the undersheriff's corrupt, and the Mount Pleasant Police Post commander is corrupt. Okay, he admitted on my YouTube video that he gets to vote in my constitutional rights. But what the fuck is up with that? Is that the most bizarre bullshit you've ever heard? Police post commanders don't get to vote on your fucking rights? Now or ever. Rights are rights. They're not up for fucking vote by an idiot. Any idiot that thinks they get to vote on anybody else's rights is what? Fucking delusional. So why am I worried? You tell me why I'm worried. You got a police post commander that thinks he gets to personally vote on your Second Amendment rights. It's just fucking retarded. This county's fucked. And it's time people knew about it, and it's time people participated in getting it fixed. Obviously, Risa Scully, with 6 years under Larry Burdick, isn't the right candidate for our county prosecutor. It doesn't even make sense. Okay, she was basically what? Larry's go-to girl for whatever crime sprees they were going on? No. Denying without reason my concealed carry permit is the definition of racketeering. And it needs to stop. The gun board's a joke. You know, everybody knows it, and nobody's doing anything about it. Anyways, I wanted to get this video out. I'm not a violent person, otherwise I'd be in jail right now. This, like I said, these events that are being discussed right now are 3 years old already. I'm not angry, but I will find justice. And recently I ran into the Michigan Judicial Institute online and found that it's kind of the bridge between the Michigan court rules and the Michigan compiled laws. And it's kind of an overview that's really helped me out a lot in the formulation of a citizen-generated criminal complaint that should generate some arrest warrants for Larry Burdick, for Sheriff Leo Matashevsky, and of course Steiner and Sweet, and etc., etc. So stay tuned. This is already a half-hour long. I wanted to keep it shorter than that. Again, I'm not suicidal. I'm not homicidal. I do believe in protecting myself and my property and my family. Not in that order. Myself, my family, and my property. And yeah. So that's it for now, and I'll start posting some of the paperwork I'm talking about, and we'll be back with you later. Bye.